Major protests in Israel against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His firing of the Internal Security Service chief is blocked by the Supreme Court for now. But the opposition is calling for a general strike. How serious is this political crisis for Netanyahu? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Nick Clark. You're fired. That was Donald Trump's catchphrase in his television days. But for his ally, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, firing his country's internal intelligence chief, well, it's proving not such a simple matter. The Supreme Court has blocked the move while demonstrators have taken to the streets in support of Ronen Bar, head of Shin, in whom Netanyahu says he's lost confidence. Well, Netanyahu's government also wants to impeach Israel's Attorney General. Opponents say the moves fundamentally undermine the Israeli state, while the opposition has called for a general strike. Netanyahu says he's got the right to sack major officials, accusing Shin Bet and the Attorney General of acting politically against him and his government. There are lots of complicated strands to this affair, which we'll try to tease out with our guests in a few moments. But at the core are accusations that Netanyahu is seeking to scapegoat others for security failings in the run-up to the October the 7th attacks, followed by the Gaza genocide. We'll put that to our guest shortly. But first, this report from Victoria Gatenby.
Ronen Bar is an Israeli intelligence officer who's head of the internal security agency Shin Bet. It's been critical of the government for the security failures that enabled the Hamas-led attacks to take place in southern Israel on October the 7th, 2023. It's also been investigating the Prime Minister's office on allegations of corruption and reportedly looking into allegations that far-right groups have infiltrated the police force and have links to Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister. The Israeli cabinet approved Bar's removal as the head of Shin Bet on Friday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he doesn't trust him. The Supreme Court has temporarily blocked Bar's dismissal. Netanyahu, however, says he's standing firm.
Ronen Bar will not stay as head of Shin Bet. There'll not be civil war, and Israel will remain a democratic state.
Tens of thousands of people protested outside the parliament in West Jerusalem on Sunday to voice their concern about the attempt to fire Bar and the effort to push out Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara when the Israeli cabinet voted unanimously in favour of a motion of no confidence against her.
The demonstration is about the dismissal of the head of Shin Bet, a dismissal that is ultimately a pretty clear conflict of interest. Someone who is actually being investigated cannot fire their investigator, and that's exactly what is happening right now.
Israel's opposition is calling for a general strike if Prime Minister Netanyahu refuses to comply with the Supreme Court's decision.
We oppose all forms of refusal to serve. But beyond that, everything must shut down. The economy must strike. The Knesset must strike. The courts must strike. And local authorities must strike. It's not just the universities. Schools must shut down as well.
Israel, emboldened by support from US President Donald Trump, seems determined to continue its war on Gaza. And it comes at a time when public anger against the government is growing, at home as well as abroad. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, plenty to get into, so let's bring in our guests. In Tel Aviv, we have Yariv Oppenheimer, who's a board member of advocacy group Peace Now. He's also a member of the Democrats. That's a social democratic political party in Israel. In London, we have Neve Gordon, who's an Israeli political scientist and professor of international law at Queen Mary's University of London. And in West Jerusalem, Yoni Ben Menachem, an Israeli political commentator and a senior Middle East analyst for the Jerusalem Center. All of you, a very warm welcome. And I'd like to start in Tel Aviv with Yariv Oppenheimer, if I may. So, Yariv, this is the first time in Israel's history that a government has fired Shin Bet's leader. Explain for us why, in your view, that's perceived as a problem.
Thank you for having me. Hello. The Shin Bet has actually two major roles in the Israeli system. The first one is to fight the terrorists from the outside, mostly on the issue of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, to do intelligence, to get information, and eventually to push forward a strike against the enemies of Israel from the outside. But this is the first wall of the Shin Bet. The second wall is actually to protect Israel from the inside and to protect the Israeli democracy and to make sure that there are no Israelis that are trying to harm the state from inside. And these Israelis can be ordinary citizens, but it can be also politicians. And therefore, this is a major role of the Shin Bet to make sure that Israel will remain democratic, that the democratic system will continue, and there will not be an attack on democracy. This is the reason why the Shin Bet is also dealing with the extreme right-wing terrorists, the settler violence. They are totally engaged on this issue. There's a section for that. And also about secrets that are linking from the state. Therefore, if there is a case in which secret documents were published abroad, like we had a few months ago, and the secrets of the state were exposed, so the Shin Bet are the one to investigate that. And we know that there are investigations that are dealing with the Prime Minister as we speak. Therefore, when the Prime Minister is taking ownership over the Shin Bet, and he's actually firing the head of the Shin Bet, maybe trying to bring his own people to the Shin Bet, he's taking advantage of a major force, a major organization that cannot just fight terror from the outside, but can also fight the Israelis themselves. And he can use this very strong instrument in order to spy on Israelis, to arrest Israelis, to interrogate Israelis that are against the government because they are legitimate opposition.
Okay.
Therefore, there is a real fear
that's
for
perfect,
the freedom
Yariv. I need to move
and
it on.
democracy in Israel.
We'll come back to you in a second,
Yes.
Yariv. Thanks for that. So let's take it on to Yoni. What do you make of that? The Prime Minister, he takes ownership of Shin Bet, and that takes advantage of this major organization, and he can use it to his own ends. What do you say to that?
The Prime Minister is not taking ownership of the Shin Bet. According to the law, there's a special law called the Shin Bet law. And according to the law, the Prime Minister is in charge of the head of Shin Bet, and the Israeli government has the authority to fire him. And this is what is happening. This is a legal procedure, and I don't think there is any danger that to the investigation that the Shin Bet is carrying out against some of the employees in Netanyahu's office. The interrogation will continue. It got nothing to do with it. This is the authority of the Prime Minister. And if the Prime Minister, the main claim is that he doesn't trust the head of Shin Bet, if he doesn't trust him, that is, according to the law, he can fire him. Just imagine you in Al Jazeera, you have an employee that you don't trust and you have to work with him. This is an impossible situation. So the head of the Shin Bet, who failed on October 7th, a major failure, he should go home quietly in order to keep the Shin Bet going, and there will be another head of Shin Bet appointed instead of him, and nothing will happen. This is a legal procedure, and I'm sure that the Israeli Supreme Court will not intervene in this legal procedure.
Okay, so let's take that on to Neve Gordon. So if the Prime Minister doesn't trust his man at the top of Shin Bet, then he's got every right to kick him out.
I think according to the law, the Prime Minister and the government can fire the head of the Secret Security Services. However, as Yariv said, one of the responsibilities of the secret services is to protect the democratic institutions of Israel. And the claim by Yariv's camp is that Ronen Bar is protecting these institutions. And because he's doing that, and he has found corruption in the Prime Minister's office, and his March 3rd report claims that Prime Minister Netanyahu is also responsible for the October attacks, Netanyahu wants to fire him. I disagree with both your panelists. I disagree with Yoni Ben Menachem that says that it is legal. Yes, it is legal, but it is legal in a situation where the government doesn't go rogue. And the Israeli government, in a certain sense, has gone rogue. It is trying to carry out a judicial overhaul that will allow further corruption into the system and allow the government, as Yariv said before, to go after people they disagree with ideologically. I disagree with Yariv because Yariv says he's fighting for democracy, but actually he's fighting for democracy for the Jews, which is the definition of apartheid. There's about an equal number of Palestinians between the Jordan Valley and the Mediterranean Sea. Most of them do not have equal rights, and the protests against Netanyahu and his government and the firing of Ronen Bar are not about what Israel's doing in Gaza, and they're not about any kind of democracy for the Palestinians in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip, in East Jerusalem, etc.
Okay, well, let's put Neve's points to both of you. So, Yoni, first of all, as Neve says, it is legal, but in this case, the Israeli government has gone rogue, so it shouldn't be able to do such a thing.
In his opinion, in his political opinion, the Israeli government has gone wrong. But we are talking about the law, the language of the law. And the language of the law is very clear on this issue. And when the Supreme Court will look into the case, it will not look into political aspects of what is happening. It will look into the legal aspects of what is happening. And as he said himself, this is legal. So if there are other reservations about what is happening, then, when there are elections in Israel, everybody can vote for the prime minister that he wants to be the prime minister. And if they want to get rid of Netanyahu, they can do it through a democratic process in the election. Right now, this is only causing confusion among the Israeli public because we're in the state of war. The war continues. And Netanyahu has majority in the parliament. So they cannot topple his regime. So if they want to demonstrate an act of democracy, this is okay. I'm not against that, any demonstrations, but it is pointless because politically wise, they cannot topple the Netanyahu government.
Is it, though, that confusing? We've got 100,000 people protesting and they seem pretty clear in their anger, Yoni.
I don't know where you're bringing these numbers from. There is a debate.
Well, the Times of Israel. I got it right here. It's reported in the Times of Israel.
The Time of Israel. The Time of Israel. You should look into other media reporting the number of those who demonstrate. There is a debate about the number. Still, everybody has the right to protest and debate. I'm not against that. But I don't think that just because a few thousand people are demonstrating, then this decision has to be reversed. This is the legitimate decision of the Israeli government and should be respected. And if the court will not intervene, then the process will continue. I do not believe that the court will intervene in this issue.
Okay, we'll come on to that in just a second. But Yariv, I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to Yoni and indeed what Neve said about indeed, they are fighting for democracy, but this is Shin Bet fighting for democracy, but fighting for democracy for the Jews, the Palestinians don't get a look in.
Regarding myself, it's the wrong address. I'm totally supportive of the two-state solution that will allow all the people living between the Jordan Valley and the sea to have a citizenship, either Israelis or Palestinians. And I believe on the Israeli democracy that combine the Israeli Arabs and the Israeli Jews together as citizens in one state. Therefore, I agree that the state of Israel is going to the direction of apartheid. It's not me, and I think that many of the people that are coming to demonstrate are demonstrating in favor of democracy within inside Israel that will include the Israeli Arabs, and hopefully in the future they will also demonstrate for the two-state solution. Regarding Yoni remarks, we need to remember the Shin Bet is not a private company, and Netanyahu doesn't own the Shin Bet. And the thing that he said that he has no trust on the Shin Bet, the head of Shin Bet, what is behind it? Where are the evidence? why Netanyahu doesn't have trust, whether the Shin Bet, the head of the Shin Bet, Ronen Bar, did something, there is any evidence that he did something wrong. The only reason that Netanyahu would like to fire him is because he preferred to have someone of his own, that they will know that if they are not going to obey Netanyahu, he will fire them as well. In the past, Netanyahu as prime minister demanded the Shin Bet to spy on people, even ministers, to listen to their phones, and the Shin Bet people said, no, we are not going to do that. He would like to have a better Shin Bet, head of Shin Bet, by the way, maybe even to control the result of the next election. This is also an option. And therefore, it's so risky, so dangerous. It's true that the law allowed the government to do it, but there is a reason for that. There should be a reason for that. And we need to remember that there is also a conflict of interest here. And when Netanyahu is being investigated by the Shin Bet, he cannot fire the people that are investigating him. He will have to wait until the end of the investigation.
Let's put that to Neve. That's a good point, Neve, isn't it?
I agree in that, in a sense. I agree with what Yariv was intimating, that what Netanyahu is really interested is not a good head of Secret Service, but actually a loyal head of Secret Service. And Ronen Bar is saying, I'm not loyal to Netanyahu, I'm loyal to the state of Israel and to democracy. And if Netanyahu is corrupt, or if Netanyahu is trying to do things that I think will hurt Israeli democracy, then it is my responsibility as head of the Secret Services to air them out and to allow those that in charge of the legal system to decide whether indeed Netanyahu is a criminal. But we need to remember a few things. We need to remember that the head of the Secret Service is the head of the organization that has tortured thousands of Palestinians, that is an authoritarian ruler in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian territories, and indeed within Israel towards the Palestinian society. And neither Yariv nor his camp had anything to say about that for years. So his camp is just as problematic as Yoni Ben Menachem's camp, who supports the Netanyahu government and the genocide in Gaza.
I do not support them. Don't speak in my name. Sorry, don't speak in my name. I don't support the Netanyahu government, and I'm not representing any political party. I'm not a political activist. I'm a journalist. So please take your words back.
Okay, look, I'll tell you what, I need to move it on because we've only got 10 minutes or so left, guys. I just need to move it on a bit here because
with Yoni Menachem, who does not support the Israeli government.
Okay, let me just move it on. So, as we talked about earlier, there's another attempt to remove another vocal critic of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that is the Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara. Yoni, I mean, looking at it from the outside, it's not a good look for a country's democratic credentials, is it? All this purging of senior positions.
On this issue, the court will decide, because I don't know the facts. I don't think that anyone knows the facts. The Israeli government is saying that she does not, the legal advisor for the government does not help the government to implement its decision, and is putting obstacles. And she says that she's not. There were a few cases that they violated the law, that they didn't support their decisions, but she has proofs that in many other, hundreds of other decisions, she supported the government. So this will come to the court and they will decide. But this is not the issue. Look, the issue of the Shin Bet is very crucial. First of all, Netanyahu is not a suspect in this investigation. They're not even claiming that. There are some employees in his office that are being interrogated. This is legitimate, and so far they don't have any proof, and Netanyahu is not even a suspect in this issue, as far as we know. So there is no conflict of interest. And as for the head of the Shin Bet, how can he be trusted after his big failure on October 7th. He's the one of the people, one of the major people who is responsible for what happened. So if the government says we cannot trust this person, so they have a good reason. They don't even have to establish that, because this is something very obvious. All the people of Israel know that.
Okay,
so
let me put that across to Yariv. We're just running out of time now, Yoni. So Yariv, do you want to come back to that?
Yes, of course. We are not a naive people. And we saw what happened to the Israeli police. Today, the Israeli police is being run by the Minister of Police that is actually saying, and he's saying it out loud in television interviews, these issues should be taken seriously when we talk about, for example, demonstrations against the government. He ordered the police to act with more force against them. But in a case of terrorists, right-wing terrorists, settler terrorists that are attacking Palestinians, beating Palestinians, putting houses on fire, he is saying this is something that you should not really investigate seriously, because it's just a youth that is doing some trouble, and nothing that you should focus on that. And by the way, there is an investigation about that as well. So we see that the police in Israel is already political. It's been controlled by the political minister. And he has appointed people that support his position. And he is not promote any policeman that thinks differently or act in a better way. So the law is there only for the people that are against Netanyahu. The people that support Netanyahu, the law is not for them. And the legal advisor to the government is saying exactly that. I'm representing the law in the cabinet meeting. And I'm saying to you what is legal and what is not legal. And if you would like to discriminate, if you would like to act with power only against people that are against the government, and to have a soft attitude to all the people that support Netanyahu and to allow them to do whatever they like, this is illegal. If you want to recruit Israeli to the army, but you are giving the Orthodox religions the ability not to go to the army, so this is unfair. This is unjust. You cannot do it.
Okay.
And this is the reason why they would like to move it aside, because they want to have dictatorship and not democracy. They would like to have the freedom to make decisions that are anti-democratic.
Neve, I just want to come back to something I said right at the top of the program, that the bottom line is that the core of this is the accusations that Netanyahu is seeking to scapegoat others for security failings in the run-up to the October the 7th attacks. That's right, isn't it?
Yes. Ronen Bar, in his report, took responsibility for the failure of the secret services on October 7th and before it. But he also criticized Netanyahu and his government for the failure. And we have to remember, since 1996, Netanyahu has been the prime minister for 17 years. In a way, he is the architect of the conception of how Israel needs to deal with Hamas, how Israel needs to secure its borders, and everything around that. And he does have responsibility. In fact, he is the most responsible for what happened in October 7th. I think Ronen Bar said that in his report. And part of what we're seeing is also about that. But I have to say that I agree with Ben Menachem that the court will probably decide that Bar has to leave and rule in favor of the government decision.
Yoni, beyond what the court decides, there is that fact, isn't there, that he decided, the head of Shin Bet, that Benjamin Netanyahu, although Shin Bet did take responsibility for what happened on October the 7th, the head of Shin Bet did also say that Benjamin Netanyahu does have responsibility. Indeed, he was the most responsible for what happened, for the security failings.
Look, of course he bears the responsibility. Netanyahu bears the responsibility, and I'm sure that eventually there will be an official Israeli investigation committee into this matter, and they will have the results, and then we can say exactly who is to blame. But of course he has the responsibility, Netanyahu. Nobody is saying that he doesn't. But it's not the position of the head of the Shin Bet to intervene in a political matter. This is a political matter, and he is the one who did not give the alert to the Israeli army and to the political echelon about the attack of Hamas. So he bears the responsibility, and now he is the issue now, and he should go. He also said that he's going to resign. So why is he holding to his position? The outcome is not going to be good for the Shin Bet itself, whatever the court will decide, because the people in the Shin Bet, they want to recover from what happened, and they want a new head of Shin Bet in order to go forward and improve the situation of the organization. And the fact that he insists to stay on his chair is very embarrassing.
Yoni, thanks for that. Final question to Yariv. Please quickly, briefly respond to that. But also, what is your sense of where this is heading, how much momentum the opposition to what's going on does? As I say, we've got these tens of thousands out on the streets. There's a call for all-out strikes going on. How much of a crisis actually is this for the Israeli government?
We're in the middle of a real serious crisis inside the Israeli society. I'm not so sure, like my friends, that we will see the Supreme Court accepting this action of the government. If we will do so, we will have to wait for the next scandal that will come very shortly. But if the Supreme Court will decide not to accept the move of the government and to freeze or to cancel the firing of the head of the Shin Bet, we will be in a real test for the Israeli democracy, whether the government is going to obey the decision of the Supreme Court or whether we're going to anarchy. And if the government will not obey, so I will see the Israeli public going out to the street, not just to demonstrate, but to shut down the country, to have a general strike. Netanyahu might find an in-between solution, saying, I'm accepting the decision, but I'm not working with the head of the Shin Bet. I will work with his duties or other people in the Shin Bet. He will not call the head of the Shin Bet to meetings. He will not answer the phone. And this will be a real danger also for the Israeli security. But I think that the ball now is in the hand of the Supreme Court and what will be the decision there. I hope that the Supreme Court will intervene and will protect the Israeli democracy, because if the Shin Bet will be in the hands of Netanyahu, we saw what happened to the Israeli police. We know what he's planning to do to the Supreme Court and the legal system. So it's a real risk for democracy and the ability, even for me as a citizen, to speak freely, because maybe the Shin Bet will say, oh, this is a threat from the inside. This is illegitimate, and I will be arrested, like the previous head of Shin Bet that a few days ago was investigated in the Israeli police because of a television interview that he gave. So this is the reality that we are facing.
All right, gentlemen, we'll keep a very close eye on that Supreme Court decision. But in the meantime, thanks very much indeed for joining us here, to Yariv Oppenheimer, Neve Gordon and Yoni Ben Menachem. And thank you too for watching. You can see this program again at any time just by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And don't forget our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. So from me, Nick Clark, and the whole team here, it's goodbye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.